Hello again, Richard Knudson back once more with another edition of the Dynamic CRM Trick Bag. And in this demonstration I want to talk about an aspect of workflow. In Dynamic CRM 4 this is importantly different in a lot of ways from Dynamic CRM 3 to Dynamic CRM 4. And what I want to talk about here is scope, workflow scope, and workflow security issues. And I'm going to open up a workflow to illustrate. This is a sales process workflow, and I should mention that I'm signed in here to the AdventureWorks sample CRM database as a system administrator. So I pretty much can do anything here. And when you create a new workflow or you're editing an existing workflow that's unpublished, as this one is, you'll see I've got a workflow called sales process. It's for the opportunity entity, and it runs when the record is created. So these start when. There's 5 checkboxes here. These all are different. You can think of these as different triggers for automatic workflows. So this sales process is going to run when the record is created. And we don't need to focus too much for now on the specifics of this workflow, because what I want to talk about is a little bit different, which is who can run this workflow and how it will behave out there with people in different security roles and different business units. Notice that this one is scoped at the business unit level. Now, scope has to do with which users will be able to trigger this workflow. So notice that I've got user, business unit, parent-child business units, and organization scopes. If I have a workflow that I want to run for everybody in the organization, anytime a new opportunity is created, I could give this an organization scope. It runs when the record is created, and it's important to note, this is actually a critically important piece of information, so remember this: automatic workflows always run in the security context of the user who created them, the owner of the workflow. And since I'm the system administrator and I have all privileges on all entities in CRM, anybody in the organization who creates a new opportunity will run this because it's scoped at the organization level, and because of the security issue that this will run in the context of the system administrator, it will always work. But suppose I have this scoped at the business unit level. Let's go ahead and publish this, and let's see what the impact of a business unit scope is. This will be a good example if you haven't worked through this before. I'm the system administrator. Go to sales. I'll make a new opportunity. Call it a new bike sale. And I will shrink the form assist here so you can see this a little bit better. So I selected a potential customer there, and I'll make it for $15,000 and save it. Now, since this workflow is scoped at the business unit level, and I as a system administrator am in this business unit by definition, as soon as I create this new opportunity record, I'll click on workflows, I can, with a new built-in sort of directly from the entity record form, using this new capability of being able to monitor our workflows right from here, I can see that this workflow runs. And it's a sales process workflow, and it actually created probably a task for me here. Yep, task for the qualify stage. And it will sit here and wait. And if I as a user go in and complete this task, let's close it out, as completed. My guess is what this workflow is probably going to do is it'll go start running again, assigns the tasks, gets to that point where it's waiting for this for the next activity, the task for prepare solution stage, to be completed. So you can see that this workflow is running, and it's got a nice little sales process staged workflow running on the opportunity entity. But what happens if I go into Megan Sherman, who as a user is in a different business unit? Go back to my system administrator profile for a minute here, and we'll go look at users just to quickly illustrate that. And you'll see down here that Megan Sherman is in the Western region, so she's not in the root business unit level the way my system administrator account is. She's in a lower level business unit. So let's watch what happens because of the scope that this workflow has. So Megan enters a new bike deal. She enters it for active, and maybe this is a $25,000 deal. Go ahead and save that. Now, because of the scope of this workflow, it's not going to run. This workflow doesn't get triggered. No matter how many times I refresh this little workflow monitor area here on the opportunity entity, this workflow didn't get run. That's because of the scope. Now that's an important distinction, because Megan is in a lower level business unit, and that the workflow was scoped at the business unit level by the system administrator. It doesn't run for her, but if the system administrator opens it up, unpublishes it, and changes that scope to the organization level and republishes the workflow, I now know that not only will this workflow run anytime anybody in the organization creates an opportunity, but I also know that it'll work because it runs in the security context of the administrator. We'll do one more deal. Make this a $30,000 opportunity. Save that. And after we wait for a couple seconds here, open up the workflows area, you can see that the workflow is running. Notice that the workflow owner, even though I'm Megan here, okay, the workflow owner was the system administrator account, Richard Knudson. So you see that the workflow in that case did run. So that illustrates the fact that the workflow scope, open up the workflow again, for an automatic workflow, the scope determines which users will trigger the workflow. They have to be able to create opportunities in the first place, but if they can create an opportunity, that workflow will always run, because now it's at the organization level, so anybody in any business unit will trigger that. And in another session, I'm going to talk about the different security implications for on-demand workflows. So on-demand workflows work a little bit differently. They don't run automatically. And the key thing to remember about on-demand workflows is that they always run in the security context of the user who runs them. So on-demand workflows are a little bit trickier because we don't know if they're going to work or not. We expose them to the wrong people. I could expose an on-demand workflow to someone who can run the workflow but not have the permissions in their security role to, for instance, create a record that maybe the workflow automatically creates. So on-demand workflows we'll talk about in a separate session. So Richard Knudson signing off. Thanks for your time, and I hope you found this helpful.